Hi, everyone. Landry Etheridge here, talking with Dr. Etta Gant, a therapist at Etheridge Counseling Group here in Charleston, South Carolina. Dr. Gant, thanks so much for being here to talk about creativity.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
So, expression through representative creativity. Tell
Mhm.
us what that means. What does that look like, and what are the benefits? What's the goal with that, or the point of that?
Mhm. Yeah, so we have been talking about, and I wrote about all different forms of creative expression, creativity to promote your mental health, as a way to explore and manage our emotions. And I try to make it super clear so that you don't have to be an amazing artist or love painting or drawing or whatever. But for this one, we actually are going to talk about more traditional art forms
Okay.
because even if that isn't the route that you decide to go on, it still offers a lot of benefits.
Hmm.
And so, art, well, art in general, right, is representation, symbolism, drawing, painting, sculpture, tie dye, all of that are ways that you are expressing yourself, representing yourself, or representing beliefs, other people. It doesn't have to be about you, but it's all completely representative. And it can look like this, or it can look like this, or it can look amazing. But
Or
it
it could look
just,
amazing.
yeah.
Well, I like what you're saying. Yeah, like, there are what you've written in the previous articles. There's so many different ways of incorporating creativity that really don't need any like skill. You don't need to have ever picked up scissors and glue to make a collage. That's something that's like pretty intuitive. But today you're kind of talking about some of that, like the more traditional creative art forms that
Mhm,
are maybe more of like a one-to-one representation of something specific versus like super objective, basically,
mhm,
is what you're
mhm.
saying. What kind of people might benefit from doing representational art or creativity? Like who might that be helpful for?
I would say anybody. Some people might be less inclined or get less out of certain modes, especially if they just like hate painting, like and
Right, right.
just
Just
they
don't
just
end up
are never gonna get behind that. That's cool. But kind of like how we had talked about diagramming as being like an accessible form, it can use symbolism in its own way,
there.
right? You have all these emotions in your head and you draw out a star or a flower on paper, and each petal represents a different emotion that's you're experiencing in that moment that day, and it just gives you that really intentional way of interacting with those emotions, and just putting it to paper, right? I think on the blog I gave an example of diagramming like what's going on in my mind, so having like an outline of a little brain, you can print it or you can draw your own, just round squiggles.
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and then filling it on the inside with how much space you're giving things in your mind. You know how people say like, oh, you're letting them take up all that space rent free, so what are those things? So I wrote like deadlines in huge big letters, like if you're constantly thinking about the next deadline at work, or an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend or whoever in the corner that's constantly just like creeping up on you. um, you can create a little key code on the side. So maybe just like anxious thoughts or orange squiggles, or maybe funny little, if you have like a hilarious little internal monologue, and that's little green spirals. You can use words or you can use symbols, that overarchingly it's representing um, everything that's going on up in here, this place that you're living in all day long, and helps you see it in a new way, or make you consider how much attention you're giving to certain things and less to others.
I've used this similar intervent or project with clients before, and it can be so, I think, validating to this particular exercise when you get everything on paper. A lot of times people will come and say, I'm so stressed and I don't know why. I
Mm.
shouldn't be stressed. So there, my life is pretty good. And then once you kind of put everything on paper, you can kind of see, oh, I'm maybe carrying more than I really realized. Or, oh, I've been giving so much attention to this, but that doesn't really need that much attention. I'd rather be focusing on this other thing in my life. Or
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
is such an interesting um I don't know, new way, like you said, new way of interacting with your thoughts
Mhm.
than maybe
Mhm.
what you're typically used to.
Mhm.
So, what advice would you give to somebody who maybe hasn't picked up a crayon since they were 6 years old? What are some things that they could try that might be fun and or helpful for them if they're feeling maybe stressed one day or want
Mm.
to incorporate some creativity into their life?
Mhm. Well, I love, using, like, really fluid materials, so that might be, like, a little bit too intimidating if you haven't engaged with any art, but
Okay.
yeah, picking up a crayon or a pencil could do it too, but just getting stuff out and letting yourself just, know, like, "Okay, I have not drawn anything in years," but just letting yourself be surprised by whatever comes up for you. I love drawing stick figures, it's my favorite thing ever. I draw stick figures, breakdancing, doing all kinds of things, it's awesome.
Oh,
But I also love using like really fluid materials, like I was saying. So things like watercolor, oil pastels, ink blots, like paint markers
mm,
are fabulous for really just letting go. And especially if you're feeling really stuck in life or
mm,
stuck in an emotion or stuck in anxiety and depression, um, trapped, anything like that,
mm.
using these fluid materials gives you that sense of freedom and movement and
Wow.
fluidity.
So even the types of materials you use can be particularly helpful. That's so fascinating. Yeah.
Absolutely. So,
What would
yeah,
you
it's
what advice would you give to somebody who maybe they are actually good, they are pretty artistic, but are running into like the perfectionism stuff? Do you have any words of wisdom for somebody who's just maybe really getting in their head and pretty
mhm.
hypercritical of like what they're producing?
Totally. Yeah, that's always so hard and so sad to me because everybody deserves just that space for freedom and exploration and not that perfectionism.
Mhm.
And even if you're just setting aside 30 minutes of, let's say, like free drawing, free creation, free whatever, and just that's honoring yourself and giving yourself that intentional compassion of set time to explore and it not have to be perfect and just be time for you to connect with yourself or try something new. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, yeah. I love that you said like everybody deserves to have the space to just explore, get messy. Did anybody else grow up with the Magic School Bus?
Of course, of
Younger
course.
siblings who we always had that on in the background. Magic School Bus and Miss Frizzle would, I forget exactly what she would say, but something about like jump in, get messy, and make mistakes, something like
Oh, yeah, I love it.
I think that might be a good mentality for people to use when they're just getting into like being creative or wanting to give themselves space to just sort of explore and see where they end up with like nobody's judging it at the end. You don't even need to no, you don't need to keep it. You don't need to show it to anybody else. It's more about the
Mhm,
process of doing it than the outcome, it sounds
mhm,
like. Yeah. Well, I'm
mhm.
so glad that you have written a four-part article series on this topic. I really hope that people will give it a try. I know I will be using one of your suggestions of haiku writing later today, and I'm excited to give that a shot and see how it goes. That'll probably be an example of one that I'll just keep to myself and not share. But I love it. Thank you so much for talking to us today. Again, this is Dr. Etta Gant with Etheridge Counseling here in Charleston, South Carolina. Thanks.
Thank you.